This baby from a
Okay,
wax
so
museum.
I'll say
I'm arguing for
so go ahead
Alright.
and lay out a proposition that you're willing to defend.
Shut
Go
the fuck
ahead.
up and let me make my argument. All right.
Oh wow.
So
Whoever this nigga is, go ahead.
let me see.
Yo,
Submit.
careless don't care, bro. Careless don't care.
Yeah, I don't care now.
Okay, I'm just sending some stuff real quick. And
Wait, how about this as well? Before we start, whatever the judgment is, let's not take forever to argue about it. Let's give a time
Yeah,
limit.
just argue judgment after.
Yeah.
Don't.
we'll just argue judgment after. That's fine.
Official. Let's debate
Alright.
after this.
All right. Wait, did I send the golden one? Okay.
Oh yeah, and Elaz is gonna be judged. Yeah, Elaz.
What?
No, I didn't agree to that.
No, he's not. I did not agree
Yeah,
to that either.
I don't.
The
I
only-
don't
Hey, I'm
want to
not
judge.
biased,
I don't
bro.
want to judge. I don't want to judge.
Not
Bro,
biased.
y'all
No, we
already
already
agreed
picked
to a
judges.
judge.
Relax.
What the fuck?
Well,
Who's the judge?
Yeah.
I'm the judge.
Hold on. Okay. So okay.
Bro,
So
who the fuck is the judge?
Manji.
Manji.
Anji? Oh, all right.
Not me, bro.
Go ahead and send.
I just want to make it clear,
Alright, okay,
I'll judge direct. Okay.
all right. So basically, my character is unlimited in the capabilities in which they can do.
You're not limited.
They're unlimited in unlimited in capabilities that they can do.
Are they not a fictional character?
What's wrong with being a fictional? Yeah, they're a fictional character, sure.
Then they're limited.
Why?
As they're limited to fiction.
That's just an appeal to reality. I don't see why just because you exist inside of a fiction that you would necessarily have to be limited by it and stuff like that. There's no argument for that.
Because by literally by definition of fiction, you cannot be real.
Okay,
Did we not
so
take English
so
classes, basic English?
all right. So I'm just gonna point out how redundant that argument is. You realize that we're talking about a not real hypothetical versus battle, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about let me finish. So we're talking about a hypothetical verse battle of characters that are not real with not real powers to determine who would win in this not real battle. So of course we just accept things as fiction to be real just for the sake of the debate. Are you not trying to debate cross-verse? Because that just goes against the purpose of it.
Dude, we don't. Oh my goodness, we don't presuppose them to be real. We know that they're fighting in a fictional setting. We don't say,
that's not my argument,
Naruto and Goku are just gonna pop out of the screen and start boxing right in front of us. No, we say in this hypothetical scenario, they're gonna fight, which is in this fictional scenario.
So yeah, that's not my argument. That's not my argument. Okay, hold on. All right, I heard your argument. So first off, that's not my argument. I said that we're just accepting these fictional characters. We're accepting that this hypothetical battle is actually going to happen in this hypothetical, right? We just accept that these characters, exist in this hypothetical, right? So
we agree. Move on. No more need to yap.
We agree on
Go
what?
ahead and provide evidence.
What specifically do we agree on?
That they're gonna fight in the hypothetical. Now move on.
That these characters are gonna fight. Okay, so yes, my character.
Yeah. Move on. Give the evidence that your character is unlimited. If we're talking about that context.
Okay. So I sent the scans. So I sent the scans. Okay, thank you for conceding on that point that you just got horrendously beat up on. Thank you. Oh my gosh, you saved me a lot of time. So so I sent the scans already. So my character just has an unwavering will, and what's name that's just tied to your Cosmo, and there's nothing's impossible for the Cosmo of the Saint. I sent it in VC chat, so it's just stated. So yeah. It's just when he drained he obtained. Okay, so you'll just see the Dragon God, right, with the pearl. He basically obtained the Dragon God's jewel or whatever and stuff like that, and that symbols that he just has an indomitable will, unwavering, just an unlimited will, stuff like that. And then that's tied to the Cosmo, and nothing is impossible for the Cosmo of a Saint, and they're unlimited in their capabilities. And I also sent.
Well, I just gave you an impossibility, so that statement would just be incorrect.
Wait, what's an impossibility?
Them being real.
Why is that an impossibility?
Because they're fiction. Analytically, those real life and fiction.
That's an appeal to reality.
What?
Okay, nigga. And
Actually, no,
that's
hold
so
on. Actually, we're
that's
not
a
gonna go down
problem.
this route. We're
Why?
just not gonna go down this route. Okay.
Hello?
Okay. So they can do anything besides actually.
Now
Hmm.
you're just adding
That's a
on
weird
words to the
argument. That's a weird
statement.
argument.
Like
That's a weird argument. That's a weird
fucking
argument. Okay.
The fuck?
Hold on. So he was saying. So your argument is basically like, oh, they can't come to reality or whatever.
yeah.
Why is that?
That would just
Okay.
make the
So why
statement
this?
false because it says nothing is impossible, yet there's
Yeah,
something that's
I guess
impossible.
okay, so yeah, so I guess there would be context to this. It would just be nothing would be impossible inside of their own fictional context or in the context of like fiction. Nothing fictionally impossible.
It never
Right?
says that.
'Cause
Now you're just adding words onto it. You're saying contextually
hold
this
on,
is what it would mean.
you really
But
okay.
there is
So
no
okay,
sort
let
of
me give my
context
argument.
for
Let
a
me give my
universal
argument. Can I give my
quantum
argument
wave.
for
I'm
it?
not done. Stop cutting me off. There is. What do you mean? There's some sort of context for a
I,
universal quantifier.
let me give my
A
argument.
universal
Let me give my
quantifier
argument
would
for
be
it.
nothing is impossible for this thing. So now you would just have to be arbitrarily assigning that it's talking about just in a fictional context, and not that nothing is impossible epistemically or something along those lines.
Okay. So we can agree in the fact that it's in reference to fiction. Are you saying that you have a problem with that? 'Cause I can give you an argument for why it's the case.
What let's talk about in the fictional verse? Yeah,
I'm
I have a
saying that
problem with that.
nothing's impossible for the context of the universe, right? An author is not okay. Again, an author can't just make say like, oh, my character is just the strongest to ever exist. Obviously, that's not going to apply to like other fictional narratives. My argument more so lies in the fact that it's going to be nothing is impossible for the saints in the context of like what their fictional universe can like. Yeah, basically like in the context of like fiction, right? We obviously know fiction can't come to reality, right? It's just in the context of like what fiction's capability, like nomological possibilities. You can be like, oh, I can do anything nomologically possible, or like or like illogically possible, or stuff like that, right? It's just going to be in
Yeah.
reference to fiction. What's the problem with that? I think that's
So you're
generally, I
saying
think,
obviously with your only evidence is obviously if some author says that there's someone the strongest, they're talking about just in their verse, which is the entire thing was in question. Because the strongest is a universal quantifier, like I was saying, including
yeah,
everything,
Prove
all
that.
existing things.
yeah, okay,
So
so for
that would you
everything,
wait, I'm
yeah,
not done. And you're
okay,
just saying that, oh well, it's contextually just talking about the verse, right? And I'm
yeah, okay,
telling you, you're saying contextually just talk about the verse. I'm saying you're just arbitrarily deciding that it's just talking about the verse because it doesn't make sense otherwise. Or we could just interpret the statement as false. We're both trying to avoid this contradiction, but my way of avoiding it is by saying it's false, and your way of avoiding it is just by adding context onto it. So you're not adding any sort of likelihood onto what you're
okay.
saying.
So I can explain why it's the case, right? So if, we don't exist somewhere, right? And they say, oh, I've destroyed. Let's say I destroyed all of humanity and stuff like that, right? Or no, I destroyed all life, right? If all life in fiction doesn't consist of what's name inside of like if we don't exist inside of that fiction, no, they did not destroy all life. But in the context, it would just mean that they destroyed all life within their fiction universe. So that's all that exists there, right? You cannot destroy something that
Wait,
doesn't
what are you
exist
talking about?
within
Repeat
a
it.
set narrative.
Say
Okay,
what you said.
so if something doesn't exist within a set narrative, that doesn't denote what's name that it's everything within that set narrative. Everything can still be encompassed to like a set figure, just like I'm the best at like fashion, or like I'm the best at certain topics. Things can have a specific entailment in what they're encompassing. That's my
Yeah,
argument.
I agree that everything could reference a certain set, but I'm telling you, yeah, that could be the case, or the statement could just be false. How are you giving any evidence towards your side?
Okay, so you think that the statement could be false based off of what?
I just explained it to you. It says nothing is impossible, yet it's also saying that it says nothing is impossible, yet it's impossible to from fiction to IRL.
Oh, so you're saying in the context as if it was like trying to say like if it was reality, obviously it would be false. But in the case of like my argument more so lies in the fact that it's fiction, so it would be true because we don't exist, right? So everything in that context, right? Because our words for like art, we created language, right, to describe the phenomena that exist inside of our world and our reality, right? They use their own language to describe the phenomena that exist inside of their reality, right? So to them, they are real, right? These are real events, right? For us, we perceive it as fiction, right? But for them, these are actually real things. They're us, basically, right? You're trying to use like our system of like language to try to say, oh, this doesn't actually mean everything. We don't exist there, right? So it doesn't
Official,
denote the fact that it's saying nothing is impossible.
official.
You can't go to a place. Okay,
You're
you can't
like
go to a place that doesn't exist.
genuinely autistic, nigga. We used our language to make up this fictional verse. So what do you
That's
mean they
fine.
go by a different language system? You have to provide
That's not
evidence for that.
okay. I can explain that. I can
And
explain what I mean by
clearly,
that, right?
the
Okay,
author's
I can explain
job
that. Okay, you
is
just
to
made a
wait.
you
I'm
just made a
not
point. I'll
done.
explain
I'm
it.
not
No,
done.
you
Shut
just made it.
up.
You just made a
Shut
point. So let me
up.
attack that. Let me attack that.
Shut
Okay, I'll
up.
explain
I'm
it.
not
I can
done with
explain
that
it. Mute him.
point.
Mute
I'm
him. Mute
not
him.
done with
Explain
that
that.
point.
Explain him. No, you already
Like,
made it. You already made it. You're not
as
gonna
mute
shotgun.
him. I'm not done
That's
with
a
my
shotgun.
point.
That's a shotgun. That's a
Totally.
shotgun.
It's not a shotgun. It's the
Official,
same
official,
point.
official. He was done speaking, so I'm just gonna mute you, bro.
Thank you. So my whole point is you would have to prove that it's the same language system because obviously the author's job is to portray what's happening in the verse to us. So you would just have to prove they're going by a different language system. Go ahead.
Okay, you're unmuted.
Okay, so my argument isn't more so in the fact of like it's a completely different language. It's more so it's like I mean like okay, so they use like definitions for words that would be similar to ours, right? But what they encompass is going to be different due to the fact that what's the name? We don't exist there, right? For theirs is the only reality, right? You cannot say that you can destroy something that doesn't exist, right? You have to have existence for this set thing to be described, right? You cannot say like, oh, you destroyed something that doesn't exist, right? So obviously, if their fiction, like their language, because I already described what language was, right? I defined language as what humans made, right, to interpret the phenomena of the world, right? So since the fact that the phenomena of the world, right, encompasses not us, them being able to do anything possible or anything doing basically them being unlimited in their capabilities would just be true to their verse, right? So now what you actually have to be attacking is like, okay, what are the things that exist inside of the verse that would exist in a cross verse scenario, right? Nothing is impossible for them. So if it's saying nothing's impossible for them in the context of this verse, right, that would mean that they could do anything. They could make themselves boundless, right? What's wrong with that?
You're actually autistic, but there's multiple things wrong with what you said, but I'll just go over one for now. One is that language isn't something that's used to just describe reality. It's also used to describe these possible worlds or these things that are abstract. It doesn't have to just be reality. That's why, like, modality is a thing in general. Like, we talk about possibilities. The way things could have been is not the way reality is. So that's already wrong. So what's your contention with that? Or do you agree?
Okay, so define. I'm gonna need you to define a lot of the terms. Like, is your argument? Are you trying to say like, this necessarily can't be the case in fiction because it's like a possible world or something? Like, what are you arguing?
No, I'm saying language isn't something we just use to describe reality. So your whole argument
Yeah.
falls apart because of that.
Wait, my argument follows. Okay,
Yeah,
so you're
because
saying my
you
argument
can't
falls
say
apart
you're
because it doesn't.
destroying
Okay,
something
so
that
then,
doesn't
would
exist
you
if
agree that
language is.
logic is a language?
Mhm. We use language to describe logic, sure.
Logic is a language. Nice. Nice, official. You
You
got
don't
that
think
one.
logic is a language?
No. Logic isn't a language. Language is used to describe logic.
Okay, but logic is derived from language. Okay, so what's your argument? So why does my argument fall down again? That's just like
Because your whole argument just presupposes the fact that words is only used to describe reality, right? And you're saying that because it's used to describe reality, then it has to be talking about everything within the verse, which I'm telling you doesn't have to be the case because we see language used to describe things that aren't in reality, like possible worlds, for example.
okay. So you're saying so you're saying the words don't have to be like the definitions inside of like a fictional narrative because like possible worlds don't
I'm
exist.
saying they don't have to describe reality.
You don't have to describe reality, right? My whole point is what when the author is trying to convey something to be true inside of a narrative, right? Is like he's going to use stuff that's going to be true. That's the stuff that's going to portray that by definition. If you're trying to portray like an omniscient character, you're gonna say in your story, oh, you're gonna give statements like saying, oh, this character can do anything, right? That's how authors write their fictional narratives. That's how we discern what's true within a narrative, right? And then we discern what's not true within a narrative via like plot twist, right? Which the author uses through language, right? So we know language is the medium, right? And we know that fiction doesn't have to appeal to reality at a 1-to-1 ratio, even though they can take aspects of it, right?
Yeah, again, this just
That's
goes
what.
back to this.
Wait, no,
Sorry,
no,
go
no,
ahead.
no. This is going. This is where I'm going to. So as long as we get these things out of the way, right? So something that may seem illogically possible inside of like a fiction, oh wait, no, illogically possible inside of reality, doesn't mean that it cannot take place in a fiction. It's just justified via suspension of disbelief. That was one thing, right? So you saying like, oh, this is not going to be applicable to possible worlds, that just goes against the definitions of what the author is trying to portray. We don't look at a fiction and just go against what the author's trying to convey unless it's like some sort of like outlier, like some sort of like justified reasoning or like through plot twist, right? Because the author is the one who we appeal to over anything,
Yeah,
since
but
their ownership, their narrative.
Fisher, you made like three different points there. I'm just gonna address them. First thing is you going back to this thing where, oh, obviously the author is just talking about things that are within the narrative. That's the thing I put
That's
within
not
question
the
in
point.
the first place.
That's not just my
Wait,
point.
wait, be
That's not
quiet,
just
be
my point.
quiet, be quiet. You're saying it's obvious that they're gonna be talking about things within the verse. I'm
Do
questioning
you know
that.
the
You're
reasoning?
saying we go by what the author means, but what the author means is what's within question. We're questioning whether what the author means is within the verse or talking about overall, which I'm telling you, like what the word mean, like the word nothing, like nothing is the way nothing is used here is describing everything. Like it can do anything, like a universal quantifier. That's how it's being used. And I'm telling you,
Yeah.
that's how I interpret it is what it means. You're saying, oh no, it's not, and we should go by what the author means. We're
Actually, you know what?
questioning what the author means. So this your whole argument just doesn't. You didn't prove anything. We can go to conclusions. I don't know why I would
Wait,
go
we
by
don't have to
this
go to
quote
conclusion. I think
unquote
it's possible.
assumption that you're going
I
by.
think it's possible for Saint Seiya. Hold on. I think it's possible for Saint Seiya to come to our reality.
We already went over
I
this
think
and
he
you
could.
agreed it's a contradiction.
No. We can. I think he can create reality. I think he can create our reality and come to it. Yeah, I think he could do it.
Doing you can think that like we already gave you the argument. If you're not going to contend
What's
it, then
the
we can go to
Okay?
conclusion.
What's the argument for that? What was the argument for it again? I wasn't tracking.
Analytically, fiction and reality are distinct. So
Okay, that's just an appeal to reality, right? We know that that goes against you agreeing the suspension of disbelief that we accept things to be illogically possible inside of fiction to be the case. Just for the sake. Yeah, you already agreed
you're
to that
saying we
earlier within
assume
the event.
illogical things can't happen in fiction. I don't see why. First off, second
No,
off, I'm
no,
just
you
saying
made
that.
no. I stated this earlier and you didn't attack it, right? And I said it's acceptable via suspension of disbelief. And you said, "Oh, this just goes back to." Then you said, "Oh, this just goes back to the author. Is obviously in reference to anything within the universe, right? So if the author is affirming that this character is able to do the impossible and nothing is limited, yes, this character would be able to come to reality. We accept it because it's a case of fiction. If you don't accept this to be an aspect, then we're going to reject all sorts of suspension of disbelief. You cannot assert your character has any supernatural power. The author would have no epistemic access to make any of these claims.
Okay, cool. So the author would have this epistemic access because it's just his imagination. So I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Okay, wait.
When
So
you say
that
that, wait,
circles
I'm
back to
not done.
okay.
Stop talking. Stop talking. Give me like 3 points. Let me address them. And next, you're saying, oh, well, we would assume they can do these illogical things because it's fiction, which is just autistic. Again, there's no justification. You're saying all of these things will fall down, which I don't see what would be
And
the
I said
problem
suspension of
with.
disbelief. Hold on.
I'm
Okay.
not finished. I'm not finished. I don't see the problem with these quote unquote things that's
I'm
falling
finna
down. I don't know what you're
finish.
talking about is falling down. And also, what else were you saying? You just
I'm finna
lost my
finish.
whole train of thought. You said that if we don't accept a lot. Yeah, and it's happening in reality. So I don't know what you mean. We should just accept these contradictory things to happen because it's fiction.
Yeah,
It's retarded.
So suspension of disbelief, I already explained this to you. It just posits that we accept things to be true and accepted, like within like a fiction narrative and stuff like that, and the capabilities of like just like what's true, right? We accept things to be true in these portrayals of these like fictional events and stuff like that, and especially in hypothetical verse battle scenarios, because by definition these things are not real, so we cannot make any entailments about these things actually being able to happen, right? These characters are going to have abilities that contravene the laws of physics, right? You cannot say that's like we wouldn't take a scientist, right, claiming that God exists with no sort of evidence, but
You're cutting up.
He muted his mic.
Well,
I don't
man,
know if I should cut in because he's making an analogy, which like, doesn't really help his point at all.
what a debate.
He's being retarded. Man, he just tag me when you get tagged in, or I'll tag you in next one if you want, whichever one.
Hey,
Yeah, I'm down
official.
for
Let me
next
know when
point,
you
but
want
Vert
me
has
to
to
take
do
in.
something, bro. I'm not 2v1 an official. Vert has to do something, and then I'm
Wait, hold on, wait. Okay, sorry. I'm muted. Okay, somebody had knocked on my door, right? Okay, so I'm finna explain why we accept these things to be true, right? So, in the purpose of hypothetical fictional versus battle is that we accept that these characters can actually interact with these characters and accept that these characters are going to be in the same playing field to decide who's going to win. Like you saying, in this hypothetical scenario, Goku is just going to Goku is going to like destroy the planet. Naruto cannot breathe, right? This is a hypothetical versus battle debate. We're putting these fictional characters and accepting them to be real in this instance to determine what would actually happen. In fiction, we accept these things to be real, right? To interpret the set narrative, right? That's the whole purpose of fictional storytelling, right? Fiction was made to express these creative ideas to portray like imaginary events, right? They don't have to necessarily correspond to reality. Like for example, faster than light characters in fiction, or like characters being able to be above the concept of time, right? Nobody can say that this is necessarily possible, right? There's no argumentation for this to actually being able to case. We accept it to be the case because it's fiction. You going against suspension of disbelief goes against fictional storytelling. You cannot 1-to-1 pick any ratio, because then by that rate you just respect just yeah, if you refute any suspension of disbelief, then we could just refute anything, right? We cannot say any character can do anything inside of a fictional narrative. We cannot even we can't even say anything about fiction at that point. An author cannot entail anything about a series.
Yeah,
Kickstarter, bitch ass
a
nigga.
lot of what she said, I just didn't really care about. Well, the part I'll address is you saying that, would accept these entailments. Obviously, I think we accept some entailments. What I'm telling you is your system of just
Why?
accepting every statement that is said is just false because we would accept false beliefs. Why I think we should accept things is if there's sufficient reason to. Like, say for example, the author says Naruto's name is fucking Naruto. He's the one that's making these stories, so obviously we wouldn't tell this to be true. But if we have these statements that are contradictory or seemingly are contradictory, then I don't see why we would accept them to be true. We need sufficient reason to question these
Okay.
statements. We have sufficient
Okay.
reason. That's
I can give
why
you sufficient reasoning.
we would
Okay.
accept certain
So
statements.
so the sufficient reasoning as to why we take the statements is actually I want to give you a question. Why would we take some statements within a narrative to be true rather than others? Because I'm gonna give my reasoning why, and then you can give me yours. How we
Okay.
determine what's going to be, because why my reasoning is not going to be flawed, right, with suspension of disbelief, because the limits of it has to be consistent within the rules established by the author or what's portrayed within the narrative, right? What we gain to understand within the narrative is through the language the author uses to convey it, right? Like, a character walking down the street, a character blowing up a planet, characters explaining their magical powers, right? So
For sure.
we accept it. Okay. So that's how we discern like what's going to be true. So now how we discern what's false, right, within a narrative, right, is with plot twist, right? Suspension of disbelief only posits that we accept things that would be like impossible in reality and stuff like that to be the case within fiction, or like impossible in like possible worlds and stuff like that. We just accept the impossible to be possible, right, within a fictional narrative. Okay, that's what we do. So that's the reasoning as to why we're going to accept it. Because So if we don't accept suspension of disbelief in one aspect, right, we're not gonna be able to suspend it in other aspects, right? There's no argumentation for that. You're just saying that it's sometimes applicable. Why is it sometimes applicable if it's conveyed through the same methodology? Right, the
Oh
author
my
writes
goodness.
things within the narrative. He's writing this story, so if he's writing
Yeah.
it within the narrative that my character can do the impossible and nothing is impossible for the Cosmo of Saint, yes, what's name, we would accept this case that this character could come to reality.
Yeah, but the whole thing is, fucking official, is that this author can write things that are wrong. None of us disagree with that. So if there's sufficient
Wait,
like
what do you mean
basis to
wrong?
believe that it's wrong or that
Wait,
it could
what do
be
you mean
wrong,
wrong? Wait,
like
why do we
what
agree
I
on
mean
that?
by wrong is
Wait,
not
wait, wait, wait.
corresponding to
Listen.
reality.
Wait.
That's what I mean.
Wait,
So
wrong in reality. Okay,
no, it
okay,
doesn't
so
correspond. Something doesn't
doesn't
correspond.
cor
And I'm not
yeah, it
finished.
doesn't
I'm not
correspond to
finished. Don't
reality
cut
or
me off.
possible
You're
world
cutting me
or
off. You're cutting
impossible.
me off, you retard.
Okay.
Click on some argument. So false isn't something that doesn't correspond to reality. So if we have sufficient reason to believe that, and we know false statements are made within fiction, then that's why we wouldn't accept those statements to be true. For sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So the argument
And
for that, okay, so
again,
the
you're just
argument, okay.
presupposing. Wait, I'm not finishing. Make multiple points. And again, this just goes back to the point on whether illogical things can happen within fiction, which clearly, if we go under a logical motoscope, it can't happen. And I don't see why we should go under any other motoscope. So go ahead
Okay.
and
So what you
justify
did,
that.
right? Okay. So what you did right now was just did a big fact to fiction fallacy, or like an appeal to reality, right? Okay. So we know that the statements, right? I posited suspension of disbelief, right? The whole point of suspension of disbelief is that we know that these things cannot actually correspond to reality and stuff like that, but we accept them to be the case so we can actually read or have fiction. You saying that, oh, we cannot do this or have the author make any comments about things that are just imaginary, right? That means that we cannot have fictional storytelling or cross verse debates,
Dude, go to
right?
the conclusion. You're not
Because,
understanding.
okay,
Understanding.
because, right? If it comes to the fact that, an author cannot say that, this character, or like a hypothetical where like an author said this person murdered this person, or like a different portrayal on like in the war and stuff like that. The whole purpose of fiction is to portray imaginary events and things that don't correspond with reality. You saying that, we cannot assign fiction, we cannot take what's true to be within a fictional narrative to be true, right? You cannot make any entailments about your character having any supernatural abilities, or have an author say that this character can go against the laws of physics, because we have no evidence to actually say that this is going to be possible, right?
Dude,
These are
dude,
all
dude,
imaginary
dude,
events.
dude.
These by definition are imaginary
Okay,
and
okay.
not real. So they go under suspension of disbelief. Your argument just doesn't use suspension of disbelief. You're saying like, in reality this can't happen, so inside of fiction it cannot happen.
Official. You're
We
repeating
get it, we
yourself.
get it, we
Official,
get
you're
it,
repeating
we get
yourself,
it, we
please.
get it, we get it.
Okay. So my point is fiction doesn't have to correspond to reality. He's just saying yes it does.
Talking. Official. Clearly, we're talking about the fiction and reality. Obviously, I'm not talking about the real world. If I said that the real world and fiction are distinct, like you're just being autistic.
The
Crack.
real world doesn't exist. The real world doesn't exist within that fiction, so the statement would be true,
It
right?
corresponds to
Okay,
that
so
fiction. I'm saying how we determine if something's true within fiction if it corresponds to that fiction or
the
reality.
author, that's how we corresponded. What's your argumentation against that? The author is who uses language to convey what's true within a narrative. If the author doesn't use language to convey what's in the narrative, then we cannot interpret a narrative. So how do we not use the author or statements within the series? We
Dude, go
take
to
statements to be true within a narrative we take them to be true unless they're proven to be false within a narrative. Otherwise, we have no way of reading the narrative.
Dude, at this point already, go to
If everything's
conclusion.
false, there is no okay. If everything's false, there is no narrative. Nothing can be said. Right? You cannot have progression if everything is false. You cannot say, "Oh, this character went from point A to point B." The fictional storytelling is
Official, we get
using
the
a
fucking
hold
point.
on,
Official, we get the
no,
point.
let me finish. Fictional storytelling is portraying progression, right? If the progression itself is going to be false, then you cannot tell a fictional story in general.
Brother,
Oh my
we
goodness,
get the
dude,
point. We get the
there's
point.
no like
We could go to
progressivism.
conclusions. Yeah, we could go to conclusions.
Oh my God, official, bro.
Fucking retarded, bro.
You are
Okay.
horrible.
I'm gonna let you. I'm gonna give you two the chances to give your conclusions.
My
Okay,
conclusion,
so
but
my
go
point,
to.
my conclusion. Hold on, let me go first. My conclusion is that he just committed a bunch of appeal to realities. His argument is saying like, obviously we accept some things to be the case within fiction, right? He agreed with suspension of disbelief in one aspect, and then he said, but we're not gonna say illogical things can happen just because it can't happen in reality. But then when I asked him the question for him to, when I said like, okay, we accept some things in fiction that can't happen in reality to be true. He said, yeah, we accept some things, but not all things. right? And he
Okay.
never gave an argument as to why that'd be the case. I'm saying, okay, so if you disagree
Oh,
with one
well,
aspect, then
I
we
got you.
don't, then suspension of disbelief cannot just be applicable in any aspect, right? If
Okay. I
suspension of
got you. I
disbelief,
got you.
hold on, no, hold on,
I
let me
understand.
finish.
Okay.
Let me finish. I'm not done. It's suspension of disbelief itself is like is a principle that says that for readers to interpret or actually read a fiction and stuff like that, you have to accept it to be true, going against like what corresponds to reality. And then he says, oh, this character cannot come to reality, right? This would fall within the narrative as to why it'd be true. And then he says, oh, why would we take these statements to be true if if it seems to be false, right? In like reality and stuff like that. I already justified as to why we take statements to be true within a narrative, because we have to take them to be true unless there's a contradiction, because the author is using language to convey it. There's no distinction in that, and he never attacked that. Since that's acceptable, since language is an acceptable means to convey something to be true within a narrative, as it comes from the author, or whether it's characters within a series, and he never attacks that, then yes, the statement would be true until he provided a contradiction. He just made a bunch of generalities.
Okay. Whyfun, please. Go ahead.
Dude, this displays officials' lack of fucking tracking. My whole point was that, oh, well, I don't see. I said we're going obviously under a logical motoscope. Illogical things cannot happen. So clearly, I'm presupposing classical logic, and I'm saying I don't see why we should go under any other system, which he never justifies, by the way. Like, he's just being retarded, and I'm saying that the reason why we don't accept that retarded principle, that we accept everything to be true until they're shown to be like a contradiction, is that obviously people can make false statements or statements that doesn't correspond. So if we have sufficient reason to believe that, then we wouldn't accept those statements to be true, unless we just would accept false things to be true.
Yeah, I got you. I got you.
Yeah,
So
Rengoku. I attack that.
yeah,
I attack
I'm
that.
not. So look, we're not gonna argue over judgment for like 30 minutes.
Do we have
Let's go
recording?
ahead.
Oh, okay, that's
Yeah,
cool. We
there's
have
a recording,
recording.
but
I may.
yeah,
That's cool. That's cool. It's cool. It's fine. We could just continue on. Who do you think won this point?
I think Whyfun kind of bodied.
Based off what?
Yeah, based off the argumentation presented. He's saying that
No,
we
but like,
can.
what did he? Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was literally like elaborating
Yeah,
what you
go
were
ahead.
saying.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. So you're saying that what do you call it? You're saying that there's no reason to accept one thing and not accept the other. He's bringing up Whyfun's bringing up the difference between a logical contradiction and a non-logical contradiction. And the non-logical contradiction can occur within fiction, of course, but he's saying this logical contradiction cannot occur, because we know that false statements can occur in fiction. Therefore, if we
Yeah.
have reason to doubt that, then we should doubt that. So
Yeah. But if my argumentation more so lies that fiction, its whole purpose is just to portray like imaginary events that don't have to correspond with reality or have to be possible in any possible world, right? Or any illogical or like impossible world, which I posited, right? And we just accept it to be true simply because it's fiction for us to interpret the author's like creative expression, which is
Yeah,
literally
we're
fictional
not going
storytelling,
over the
right? Hold on,
judgment.
well,
Like,
let me finish. So, and then he just says like, oh, under our logical system, he's saying that that's not possible, right? Suspension of disbelief posits that we know, right? We accept that it's not possible inside of our world, right? But the whole sake of the debate is to what's the name, for us to be able to make claims about these
I'm just
characters.
gonna say this one thing. I'm just gonna say this one thing, and y'all gonna move on
Yeah,
because we agree we're not gonna argue judgment. He's not in contention with the physical, like what do you call it? Being the physical that's impossible within the real world happening within the fictional world. What he's disagreeing with the
that's
logical.
not my argument. I'm
Yeah,
saying
well,
impossible
I'm
in
aware.
all
Well, please,
aspects, which
official,
is why
okay,
he
cool,
didn't
cool, cool, cool,
attack.
cool.
official.
Yeah,
I'm
cool,
trying to
cool.
mute you, right? I'm aware of your argument. Your argument is stating that what do you call it? The illogical can occur within the fiction. He's denying that, and he gave his reason for denying that, which I don't think he defeated. But y'all can just go ahead and move on to the next point because we already agree we're not moving to the judgment. I
Is
mean, we're
that
not arguing.
fucking careless?
Yeah, okay, so
Oh, it's not
okay.
good.
So when I posited
Yes,
that,
it
okay,
is.
we
Official,
accept it in all
dumb.
It's
possible
not
worlds or
fucking.
hold on. When I posit that we accept in all possible worlds or impossible worlds, he just said
Vert
that,
came in a
oh,
little bit
under
Official.
my
We're
logical,
not arguing fucking judgment, please.
Thank you, Vert. Go. Like, holy shit. This nigga official's not gonna stop to go judgment.
Let's get it.
Manny,
Let's get it.
Vert.
Let's
Okay,
go.
wait, hold on, y'all. Okay,
And
all
coupon
right,
number
wait, hold up. Okay,
$4. Insert.
so yeah, my character just scales above binary oppositions, or like he's just above binary oppositions. I
I'm
don't know
not
how
What do
even
you
that.
mean
done
by
with
binary
really.
oppositions?
Wait, hello.
What do you mean by binary oppositions?
Binary oppositions. Like, okay, yeah, binary oppositions basically just gonna be like Just gonna be like a set of dualities, like dualities in general, right? Like it just
Just a
tends to be like a
repetition
concept or the
duality.
conceptual idea of dualities inherently. So if you're beyond like all binary oppositions, you would
Wait,
just be
slow it down, slow it
above
down, slow it
all.
down.
Wait, hold up. So yeah, if you're above all binary oppositions, you just be above all concepts, especially things like time and space.
Wait, why?
I think
Okay,
my
so
character is out of
like,
verse.
yeah, chill, 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 chill. Slow it down. So I asked you, what do you mean by binary oppositions? And then you were talking about duality, so it's just repetition. So now, if you're in reference to dualities, what does that entail if a character is above it? That they now be above like all those other things that you were talking about? And you can show me the
Wait, so
statement
are
too,
you
bro.
trying to tell me that like concept doesn't scale you anywhere, or
No, I didn't ask you that. So I'm confused on how being above, if you can show me that this statement is actually existent, how that entails you being above these concepts.
okay, I'll get the statements for you. Yeah.
Go,
Bro,
Manny,
I'm
go.
so tough, bro. Like I just knocked the whole squad. Wait, my aim is bad.
This nigga playing the 4-1 debate before.
Oh my gosh. Tell me where you sent when you sent them.
All right, little nigga. All right. Oh, well, I sent the first scan of scans. You go look at that.
All right, give me a second.
My name is Repellent, and I'm here to debate.
I'm dead. Okay, so you said you sent it in scans. Let me see. Which part am I reading? I stated that by law, emptiness is in territory free from binary opposition. It is, bro. Can you send the full thing so I can like read between the lines? I won.
No, nigga, I don't have like the full thing on me.
Well, obviously, there's a part of this that's cut out that can give further context. So I'm just not going to accept this statement if I can't see the full
Okay,
context.
hold up. Wait, no, I did find the full thing. Hold on, I got you. There you go. I mean, also like
Okay, so
you
I
can
stated by
say
law,
or
emptiness
not.
is a territory of freedom, free from binary opposition. It is the heart that contemplates the world both as it should be and as it is. The sky is distant, the color is pale. A noble figure stands on an uncertain boundary, gazing at all the whereabouts of stars. So, what's the law?
What?
What's the law?
I said it, but I mean, I don't think the fucking law matters if we already have.
It does
The
matter
law would
because
just be
it's
an
the
anti. Wait,
statement.
hold on. The law would just be an antecedent. It's just like the conclusion.
That begs the question, right? So, you're saying
How's
that
that beg the question?
yeah,
Wait, wait,
because
wait, 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 wait. Hold on, hold on. Can whoever's unmuting on server muting D1 stop because like he got a lot of background noise.
okay, so yeah, you just propose that the consequent follows from the antecedent. I'm asking you how is that the case because I'm putting in a question the antecedent here. So who is the law? Because I'm not going to expect the statement to be true if I don't know like who's making the statement.
Obviously, the fucking narrator is making the statement, my nigga.
Wait, show me where it says the narrator is the law.
I mean, okay, look, we literally see it fucking says illustrated at the top of the scan. It says comment. It would
Hold
be
on,
just
let me
be
see.
falling under the narrator who's obviously making the fucking statement. That's just like, I think that's just
Wait,
like
it says illustrator and it's empty. Then it just says comments.
comments. If it's the
There's
illustrator
it's
and
not.
it's empty, then the narrator. We know that narrators and illustrators work together like in conjunction. So obviously, we
Wait,
could just interpret
that's what I'm
from
questioning.
inference that.
So it doesn't have
Wait,
an
that's not
illustrator's
making the
name
question.
there. So who is this making the statement? I'm confused. It doesn't say it's stated by the
Okay, wait,
illustrator.
you just
There's
asked me
no
the same thing like 5 different times. I already
listen,
explained it to you.
listen, listen. There's no written account for the illustrator here. It just says as stated by the law. Like who
Okay,
is the law?
first off, I'll need
Can
to
I
give
tag
you
in? Can I tag in? Can I tag in?
sure official. You could tag in.
Okay.
Here we go.
So obviously, based off the scan, the author is trying to portray that this character is just going to be like a figure of like truth, somebody who we're gonna take statements from, just like a
Oh,
credible source.
oh my goodness. So why is that the case? And I don't really care if that's the
Because
intention.
so if an
Let me
author,
finish. Wait, let me finish.
I
Let
can
me
make the
finish.
argument. You just
Bro,
said why.
wait,
Let
let
me
me
answer your
finish. Let me
question.
finish.
I
Focus on the
Official,
understand your
he
question. I
wasn't done
understand your question.
speaking, nigga. He wasn't done
like what in the
speaking.
world.
Be quiet
So
for 1 minute.
yeah, like I said, obviously you can say that the author put this information like is there to convey information. I'm putting in a question whether or not this is true. This could just be the intention for it to be true, but I want to know who the law is so I can see if they're actual credible source. I'm not going to take any statement. I don't care if the author makes a statement.
Okay, that's not my argument. My argument isn't just because the author statements. I'm saying that if it was the case that the author was trying to convey something to be true within a narrative, they would use like language or like a character to portray it, right? You saying that you don't feel like this character is credible would there's no argument as to why he wouldn't be credible, right? Obviously, because like in the case of if the author was trying to affirm something to be true, he would be he would like use statements of like asserting something to be true, right? He wouldn't just be like making a statement like questions or something like that, you know. He would be using other like other forms of language and stuff like that, other like language, like sentence forms and stuff like that. So like if he's trying to affirm something to be true, right? Based off the like the framework of the sentences and stuff like that, how they're shaped and stuff like that. Obviously, we would just accept it until proven to be otherwise, because that's the only way we can discern what's going to be false within a narrative is through contradiction or through like oh yeah, through a contradiction or through like a plot twist, right? You saying that it just could be the case and stuff like that is just an appeal to possibility, right? And then it's not our burden to provide evidence for you, right? You would have to provide evidence against this character being this what verse trying to scale them to.
Yeah, so you just said the same thing like multiple times. So
No,
again,
I
I can
didn't. You
grant
just
that.
can't track.
Listen, I can grant that we can usually accept things to be true unless there's some reasonable cause to question its validity. And I'm telling you, I am not just because this is a statement that is made by the author via him being the means to which the series is created does not mean that every single statement is going to be true. Because if that's the case, then there would be internal contradictions. I'm asking you again, who is this creator?
My nigga,
Because
I got it.
let me
No,
finish.
man, wait, no, Bert,
Nigga.
stop, stop, stop,
Let me
stop, 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 stop,
finish.
stop,
Let me
stop, stop,
finish. Let me
stop,
finish.
Manny, let Manny go,
Who was interrupting
All
me?
right.
I didn't hear. But either way, like I was saying, it doesn't have to be in a direct contradiction, as in I have to pose a contradiction. What I'm saying is it could be a contradiction, and the warrant for me saying that it could be a contradiction, as in me calling into question whether or not you can justify this to be true, is my lack of knowledge on this series. So I'm not going to accept everything to be true because, like I said again, if I do accept everything to be true, just because it's in the mode of fiction to which the author creates, that will lead to some internal contradictions.
Okay. So I'm gonna address like a lot of the stuff you said. Okay, so my argument was more so that since it fits like what an author would do in the hypothetical that I provided as to like how an author would affirm something to be true, like how we use a character or how we would use language to portray like this actually being the case, or like how we'd use a character that would seem right like a credible figure, right? So obviously, if this ability, right, especially like Chekhov's gun, right, that's everything in a narrative serves a purpose, right? Everything in a narrative. So in this instance, it seems like the author is trying to explain an ability, right? By your argumentation, we would have no way of like affirming like what's actually going to be like inside of like a series, right? So that's just the argument just doesn't hold anyway, right? So yes, the reason why we'd accept it is because it seems to be the case. No, the reason why we accept it is because it fits the hypothetical of like, yeah, it fits like the criteria as to what an author would do generally to portray this. So it's just gonna be more probabilistic that this is a credible figure. That's why we should take it. It's just in that same like framework form. Yeah.
Wait, can you like please stop like repeating yourself? I can grant in terms of what the author portrays in the story, more often than not, the author would convey truthful information. I'm sorry if there's background noise, but more often than not, I can grant that. But I'm saying in this case, we don't have a statement directly from the author. Rather, the author is just the overarching means to which the series is created. This is stated by somebody named Law or something named Law. So I'm putting into question the validity of this person because, again, characters can be wrong. Language, you keep bringing that up, doesn't matter. I don't care for your
Yeah.
hypothetical.
Okay.
Language is going to be a necessary precondition for either any statement to be true or any statement to be false. And then with the Chekhov's gun thing, that is also a contradiction. That's the same thing as if I was affirming every single statement in the series to be true. If all narrative elements were necessary, that means that it's possible for another narrative element to contradict another narrative element. Therefore, it would be self-contradictory in and of itself. So I'm going to ask you again, what is the
Okay. So
reason
that was
for you?
okay. So you
Let
said
me
Chekhov's
finish.
gun. I'm gonna attack it.
Wait, hold
Let
on,
me
official.
finish.
Let me tag in.
Wait,
Official, let
no,
me
So
no,
tag
no,
in.
no,
I'm
no,
gonna.
no. He
Can I
made a bunch
finish?
of points I have to attack. No,
Wait,
you
can
have
I
to
finish?
attack this. You're not tracking what he just
Bro,
said.
you
Can I
about to
finish?
lose it, man, bro. You are horrible.
Can I finish? So yeah. So again, I would like you to explain who this law person is, or again, I'm just gonna dismiss this
Okay,
claim.
official. I have that shit. I can.
No. I'm not done.
Nigga.
Okay, I know you have the skin. Just wait. So Chekhov's gun isn't contradictory because it just says everything in a narrative just has to serve a purpose, right? And then there's nothing wrong with something being like, wait. What do you mean by contradictory? Because like something's contradictory within a narrative that is a problem. We consider it to be like an outlier, right? That's where we apply like depth to the author fallacies and stuff like that, right? So I agree that like actually I don't agree. I'm just stating that, right? And then you said you're putting into question like why this law figure is credible. I'm saying that since it fits like what an author would normally do to convey something to be true, within a narrative. I'm just saying, like prima facie, it seems to be the case that the author is putting this person as a credible figure since the fact that he's stating it, right? In the case of like if we didn't have any information later on in the manga, right, and stuff like that, like if a manga was like just promoting chapters, right? As a reader, we take everything to be true that's shown to be true. Wait, no, we take everything that's true without a contradiction simply due to the fact that there's no evidence, right, to assert anything else to be the case, right? Right,
So
and that the reason why we do that, the reason why we do that is because we can only appeal to what the author says. It doesn't matter what is going to be more probabilistic or what's going to be happen, because we know that fiction doesn't go off of what's more probabilistic and like with like what you agree with, like nomological things and stuff like that, right? Or just things in general, right? They don't go off of what's more probabilistic, right? They can go to like they can do like other routes of like portraying things, right? So since it fits the same like criteria for like an author to portray things, yes, we would accept to be true, right? Because we wouldn't be able to like, let's say a person was trying to describe this power called Nin within the series, right? He's going to use a character, or he's going to use some sort of person or some sort of being entity, right, to portray something to be with the narrative, right? Because if he doesn't, right, I mean, if he's not using language, right, if that's what you're trying to affirm, your argumentation would have to not use language, right, to go against mine, right, because he's literally using language to convey this to be the case. So yes, it does matter. It doesn't matter if you feel like law is going to be credible due to, and also lack of knowledge isn't a valid argumentation for something not being the case. I can explain something to you being the case, right, and you saying, oh, I don't have full knowledge on the story, so I'm just not going to accept it. I don't care if you don't accept it. My argument still logically follows and it's sound, right? You haven't defeated my argumentation.
so with the first thing, you're obviously very confused about what Chekhov's gun is. Chekhov's gun just posits that every element in a story is necessary. So if that's the case,
No.
any statement, yeah, you can search it up. So yeah, like I said, any statement that would
Okay, go ahead and bring it up.
let
Bring
me
it up. That's
finish.
a claim.
Let me
Bring it
finish.
up.
Let me
That's a
finish.
Wait,
claim.
Let me
Bring
wait,
it up.
finish.
That's a
official,
Let me
claim. Bring
finish.
it up.
official,
You're being very
official.
spastic.
Shut the
You're being
fuck
very
up. He's still
spastic.
speaking, bro.
So yeah, like I said, Chekhov's gun is posits every single element in the story to be
That's
necessary.
a
If
claim.
that's
Bring it
the case,
up. No, that's a claim.
shut
Bring it up. I'm not
up.
gonna let him change me.
Shut
That's a claim.
up.
No.
Shut up. Shut up. So it's possible for a statement to be contradictory to another statement. Therefore, Chekhov's gun is contradictory. Listen to me. If Chekhov's gun posits all narrative elements to be necessary, and it is possible for another statement to contradict another statement, therefore they all can't be necessary, or that would just lead to some trivial explosion in terms of the
All right. Okay.
coherence of
Fine.
the
Fine.
series.
Fine. Fine. That's
So
fine.
with
That's
the
Chekhov's
let
gun.
me
Fine.
finish.
Then
I'm
you don't
not
have to
done.
use
I'm not
Chekhov's gun.
done.
It
I'm
would
not
just be.
done.
It would
I'm
just
not
be a
done.
reading
I'm not
principle.
done. I'm not done. So yeah, with
It's
the
very
other
fine.
thing,
All
you
right.
shut up. I'm not done. So you keep arguing about the person that we're talking about. Again, you keep bringing up the author and some stupid hypothetical. You just threw out a bunch of terms. They all could be reducible down to the language to which the author uses to convey the story. I'm telling you, if that's the case, I grant that the author does more often than not convey truthful information. Whose mic is that? That's getting annoying.
Suck a dick, bitch.
Why? Yo, Manny's
anyways,
lying.
anyways,
He's
anyways,
not taking
anyways,
this
anyways.
debate seriously.
So yeah, like I was
So yeah,
saying,
we
so
win.
so even if like yeah, language is what the author uses to convey the story or whatever, and I can grant that more often than not the information is truthful. But that's if this statement is coming directly from an author. There's a difference between a statement being made by an author because he's the overarching creator of the series and something in the series being directly stated by him. You author can still use other characters to convey information, and those characters are not infallible. Neither is the author. So again, this person that is the law, this is coming from their knowledge, and they're making this claim. So I would like reason to believe this person is reliable. Stop repeating the argument. And then with the
Okay.
seemingly
So
more
I didn't repeat
shut
my
up, shut up,
argument. I
shut
didn't
up,
repeat
shut
my
up,
argument. That's a claim.
shut up,
But
shut up,
okay, you
shut up,
just you
shut
just
up,
made
shut
your
up,
argument.
shut
I'm
up,
gonna
shut up,
refute. I'm gonna
shut up,
refute
shut
the stuff
up,
that you
shut up,
said. What else do you have to say
shut
that's
up. I'm
really
done.
valid? What else?
I'm done. So yeah, again with the seemingly thing, you keep begging the question there because seemingly is just going to be true to what we know. Knowledge is going to be correspondent to the series. Telling you, if I have reasonable cause to call into question whether or not this is correspondent to the series, and you keep repeating that this is correspondent to the series, and you're obviously like this is basis repetition. We're going circular, and with the lack of. Oh yeah, the lack of knowledge wasn't supposed to be an argument for why this thing is false. I'm not stupid enough to make an argument like that. Rather, I said I can grant more often than not things are accepted to be true if there's unless there's reasonable cause to call that into question. That reasonable cause can be sufficed by me having limited knowledge on
You
the
just said a
series
whole bunch
and
of
shut up.
nothing. Are you
I give
done?
that. Shut up. So it's not supposed to be an argument. It's supposed to be reasonable cause that I don't have knowledge on this series, nor do I have knowledge on the person who's making the statement's credibility. So again, all of these things are
Okay.
reasonable for me to call into question whether or not what you're talking about is true. If you repeat
Okay.
yourself,
Okay. Okay. So again, it doesn't have to be Chekhov. Okay, so I didn't say this first. So Chekhov's gun, if Chekhov's gun by definition isn't that every narrative principle is necessary, I'm just gonna say that it's not Chekhov's gun. I'll just call it a reading principle. Everything within a narrative is just gonna have a purpose, right? An author putting clouds in the background, grass, anything in a narrative has a purpose. The author put that inside of a series, right? You saying that there's a distinction between an author making statements, and then him writing statements within the series as that's a character. An author is the person who writes the story itself, and he writes these characters, right? So it is still by connection, right? It is still the author conveying what's true. Like literally, fiction is just an author conveying imaginary or portraying imaginary events, which you've agreed upon earlier in the debate when I was bringing up the Saint Seiya scaling, which I'm not even finished with, right? So and then you saying that lack of knowledge, right? I didn't say lack of knowledge was going to make the argument false, is what you said. I said that lack of knowledge is going to be a good argument for you to be able to like just be skeptical or it bringing any probability to your argument or inducing or why we should even take it to be the case. Just because you have lack of knowledge on a series and stuff like that doesn't necessarily mean that you're just like justified the question or that we should just take your argument to be the case, right? So and then when I brought up like how language and stuff like that, how that's used to convey like a narrative and stuff like that, how they use like characters and stuff like that. If an author uses language and stuff like that to convey what's actually true through the characters within the medium, because I already explained to you the only medium in which an author is able to convey things to be within a narrative and stuff like that to be true is whether it's a statement from himself or through other characters within the series or other entities within its own narrative. That's how we establish this what's true. That's simply world building. That's literally world building by definition, right? So, right, it's going to be more probabilistic off of the scan and off the evidence that we have, right, that it is the case, right, that this character scales to what Vert is saying. You saying that there could be some hypothetical other contradiction to the series, right, is just an appeal to possibility. We don't care for that, right? Things with little to no factual knowledge associated with it outweighs things with actual more probabilistic factual knowledge associated with it, right? And the reason why it's going to be more factual in this instance because we take the statements to be true, like I said, with the narrative. We take what the author says to be fact unless shown a contradiction, right? There is no contradiction in these scans besides what you've appealed to in your possibility. So if you're not going to provide any probability, then we could just go to conclusion.
so yeah, I'm just gonna ignore like the middle of everything you said. I'm just gonna attack the first and last thing you said.
Okay,
So
then we just then
I don't
still gonna
care.
go.
Shut up.
Still gonna
Shut up. Shut up. Shut
still
up.
gonna, oh,
Shut up.
okay, that's
Shut up.
fine.
Shut up. Oh my goodness. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Like I said, what I mean by I don't care is I don't think it adequately attacked what I'm saying. And you're lost. You're very confused going over your head.
Think that.
So with the first point, shut up. So with the first point, you are just being invisibly ignorant when you want to change up the principle that you're trying to use. I'm saying, regardless, if you're taking any of these narrative elements to be necessary, then that would lead to explosions,
How would
trivial
that lead to
explosions.
explosions? What
Just like a
trivial
shut up,
explosion?
shut up, shut up,
So
shut
what
up. Just
explosions?
like
Elaborate on those.
shut up, shut up, shut up. It's just like affirming. Like I'm assuming you know what I'm tripping. But either way, like I said,
What
so that just leads
explosions?
to
What
incoherence within the
explosions?
series
What
if you
explosions?
affirm everything to be
Okay,
true. And then
that
shut
have no
up, shut up,
evidence.
shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. Playing a game and I'm trying to focus and you keep like spurging out. So like I'm saying, so if we accept every single statement to be true, then that will just lead to trivial explosions, which will lead
Go
to
ahead,
incoherence.
explain those,
That is
explain
shut
those,
up,
explain
shut
those.
up, shut
Prove
up,
that,
shut
prove
up,
it,
shut up.
prove it, prove
Shut
it.
up. So yeah,
Prove
trivialism by definition is if we accept every proposition to be true. If that's the case, then every proposition would be true. And then you would allow for true contradictions. If true contradiction was the case, then that
All
would
right,
lead to
okay, my
logical
argument
explosions.
is
So shut up. Let me finish. Let me finish. That was the argument. So yeah, with the last thing you said, stop repeating yourself and you're confused on the appeal to possibility. I'm not saying it's possible, therefore it's the case. Rather, I'm saying it could be possibly wrong. The warrant for the possibility is my lack of knowledge.
all right,
Again, the
so
lack of
okay, so
knowledge
let me
is
attack
not an
you.
argument. Shut
So
up.
again, okay,
The
so
lack of
you're saying
knowledge is not
trivialism
an
that has no
argument. Bro,
relevancy.
can he get muted, please? The lack of knowledge
Like,
is not an argument for why my conclusion is true or your conclusion is false. It gives reasonable cause to call into question whether or not this statement should be accepted to be true. Because again, I've repeated multiple times, I can grant more often than not the author conveys truthful information. But I'm telling you, in this case, yes, the author is the reason that characters in this series make statements. But I'm saying the author is valuable and the characters are valuable. And you can't say that the author's statement in the series is the same as any other character's statement. I don't care if they're down or reducible down to the same person. They're completely different in their application. So, yeah, we can go to conclusions.
Okay, so now that's a bunch of claims. Why would you go to conclusions after you made all those claims? Are you dumb? The
All
fuck?
right.
Okay, so first off, you said that like it wouldn't be applicable for like some dumbass aspects off of like trivial like fucking explosions, right? You're saying that everything like what was your argumentation for that again?
You can't track. We can move on.
No, I didn't hear. You just made a bunch of it, so obviously. So what are the trivial explosions? You never provided an argument.
I did provide an argument. So
Okay, I'm
you
just
just
gonna
now told me
okay.
to repeat the
Okay,
argument,
so I'm
but
just
you
gonna
just told
attack.
us
I'm just
I
gonna
didn't
attack.
provide
I'm
an
just gonna
argument. Let's
attack.
go to conclusions.
And then you're just
Wait,
gonna
let's go to
remind me,
conclusions.
right?
Let's
No,
go
we
to
don't have to go to
conclusions.
conclusions. No, I have
But
to
you just
attack
said I
what you
didn't.
said. Can you
You
mute him?
said I
Can you
didn't
mute him? Hey,
provide an
mute him,
argument.
mute him, mute him, mute him, mute him. Moderation, mute him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Moderation, mute him, mute him.
He's muted.
Moderation,
He's
mute
muted.
him.
Go. He's muted. Nigga, he
Moderation, mute
go.
him. All right.
He's fucking
Okay,
muted,
cool.
nigga. Go. Damn.
Okay, so there's not like he's taking like an extremist point of view, and he's not even like factoring in my argument. He's just saying that we take everything to be true with the narrative. I said that we take everything to be true, right, unless there's shown to be a contradiction. And solely based off of this, but solely based off the scans provided, right, we're gonna take this thing to be true. Him saying that it's reasonable cause, right, via his lack of knowledge. I'm saying your lack of knowledge isn't what's name a reasonable cause in the context of like reading fiction, because it doesn't matter what your lack of knowledge is right on the subject, because we're trying to discern what's truth. If there's no probability or any like credibility to your argument solely just off the fact that you lack knowledge, right, that doesn't provide any validity or like probability or like any reason as to why what's the name it would be reasonable for you to call anything into question, right? And then he brought up like taking everything to be true of the narrative. There is no problem, right, with taking what's said to be in a narrative to be true, what's his name, until shown a contradiction. That's how we determine what corresponds with reality, right? That's literally how we do it, right? That's what logic is, right? We develop, right, and learned what corresponded to reality, right? To like what's his name, to discern truth. Right, this would be the same instance of like this would be the same way of conveying fiction. The author and characters are not going to be you're saying that just going to be completely distinct in all attributes. No, that is not going to be completely the case at all, right? Because again, these fictional characters are just imaginary characters, people and events. Like a fiction itself is just imaginary people, characters and events written by the author. And as readers, we read and take take what's said within the narrative and stuff like that to be true, unless shown it not to be true, right? That's how we read things, right? We would be able to know, we wouldn't be able to progress, right? If you like, let's say you're writing I, right? That I wouldn't actually be an I, so how can a character say I did this or am? The same principle follows with every single world. If every single thing is just going to be false, right? Because if there's no truth factor, then we cannot read fiction. Right? If something's neither true nor false, it's going to be meaningless, right? We don't take meaningless things and what's name look at them as sources of information. If something is meaningless by definition, we don't take it, we don't hold any value to it, right? Fiction, the whole purpose of fictional storytelling was made. We hold value to what the author or like what's the narrative and stuff like that, or what's yeah. So that's what we hold. So like you didn't attack Mark, but we could go to conclusions.
All right, Manny, you're muted.
Nigga, we cannot go to conclusions. What the fuck?
Oh
No,
wait,
hold on. I
no
need to
wait,
get my
Vert,
shit
never
right.
mind. Vert got to go too. So Vert's gonna tag in.
Oh yeah, so basically, the law thing that you was mentioning beforehand, I kind of explain it now. So basically, it's just gonna be like Akasha, right? Like the Akashic records, like they record everything in like existence and can create logically everything and govern like the dimensional theory of like the Nasu verse. So yeah, they basically like bound everything and governed everything in like the spiral of the root. Basically, like holds the entire verse together. Yeah,
All right,
basically
wait,
some
Vert,
shit.
Vert, can I tag in?
So
Can I
like
tag
that would
in?
just be like the
Oh
law. That
my
would just be
goodness!
like
Can I, bro?
law,
No,
nigga.
I'm addressing that. I refuse. No, that was the
Hello,
point.
but okay, yeah, you can't digress that shit. What the fuck?
Wait,
Can
I'm
I
not.
attack it?
I never said that I'm gonna like dismiss it. I said I'm addressing that. Like right
Okay.
there, you could have been said that. We went on to this random tangent for no reason.
No,
So now
No,
you
but
no,
bring
yeah,
it up.
Vert, why would you
it's
do that? We
like
should have went to
Can
conclusions.
you
Oh my
mic down? This is
god.
not your turn.
Why did
yeah,
you? What,
like
what
I
defense
said,
did you put? What did you put? What did you put in DM?
wait. Anyways, so like I was saying, everything that we just argued up till now is like completely pointless. So yeah, we can move on to this,
Oh my
but
I don't
fucking
think it's
god!
pointless.
Why is it pointless? No, no. What's the argument for that?
it's completely pointless because the entire argument that we were going down is whether or not we should accept this statement by virtue of the person making it, their credibility being unknown. Now we know what their credibility is, and we could talk about. That's
What's
a completely different point.
what's their credibility?
Uh, uh, can
You dumb.
move on?
Wait, Vert. What's the
Wait,
argument? What's their credibility? Wait, Vert.
Like,
Vert.
okay,
What's
yeah,
their
but okay,
credibility?
basically official,
Hold on, let me
Yeah.
finish, Maji.
Wait, hold
So
up,
yeah, do you
wait,
understand what I'm
yo,
saying?
chill,
Yeah, yeah,
chill.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I muted them both, bro.
can we just like move on? Because that last point was completely different. This is like a completely new point. So I mean, Whyfun, if he wants to argue this point, he can. But I'm just like tired of these.
Okay.
Like,
Whyfun, you want to say again? That nigga Whyfun not here.
All right,
All
so
right.
since he doesn't want to argue
No,
it,
bro, I'm playing, bro. And this shit's pissing me off. Sure,
bro,
arguing.
Vert, I don't think you should have
all
sent that
right,
skin. I feel like we could have. I feel like we would have won this point,
Nigga,
lucky.
you lost, but
Bro.
nigga, he
No, we
saved your
won
ass for
both
that
points.
shit.
We definitely won both points.
Official, no, you
Yeah,
okay.
didn't.
sure.
Official.
What's the next
No,
point?
no,
What's
no,
the
no. It's
next
okay.
point?
It's okay. I have Vert.
Point.
I literally have
Like,
regret. I
no
literally have
offense,
Okay,
regret.
that's
bro,
fine.
but
That's fine.
like,
Okay,
Bro.
cool. So
like,
what's the next
listen,
point?
bro. There's no way you're real, bro. Like
The
official, bro.
point we're
There's no way you're
arguing
real.
is the fact that these people are somehow like, or quote unquote, like document everything in existence or whatever. Therefore, we should take the statement like to be true or
well,
whatever.
it's not just
Oh, these people
document. What the fuck?
document everything in existence.
Yeah,
Hold on,
right
it's
there.
not just a document. They create logically everything and govern like the entire dimensional theory of the Nasuverse, like governing everything as a whole, which is like the spiral of the origin,
After
basically.
this, I'm gonna get
It's
back
like
to
the
my
highest
Saint Seiya
cosmological
feeling.
structure
I'm not
within
gonna
this
lie.
series.
Wait, so these people that made this statement govern everything?
Yes, nigga. What the fuck?
So they're these uncalled beings that know everything that comes into existence. They're omniscient.
Yeah, all of these. I already said that.
Okay. Let me see the scans. Where are the scans?
It's literally in skins.
Something outside world, according to him, your power grants dimensional theory outside of this world, called the spiral organ, contains coordinates to be beginning of all things, be the world creations. What's the first statement that we're trying to go over? Because I'm lost. Man, you just argue until I get what y'all are saying, because I don't even get what this whole point was about.
All right. So yeah, basically the whole point was he made the statement that this character is beyond all binary oppositions or whatever, and then it was just stated that the person who created the statement is the law, and now he's saying the law is the people who govern or create everything or whatever. So I'm just gonna. I guess I'll just read. Attempts to reach the outside world according to her. I'm not reading that.
Wait,
There's power.
Vert, don't say
Okay,
anything
wait,
else.
hold
Don't
up,
say
wait. If you're
anything
not
else.
Man,
gonna read
you
something,
mute.
obviously, wait, hold
Yeah.
up. Wait, hold up. If you're not gonna read something, obviously, like that's just like you trying to
Listen,
like
no.
ignore
What I'm
context
saying,
and narrative.
bro. I read it. I'm
Oh,
not reading.
wait, hold on, Manny. I can
I'm
argue this.
butcher it. Okay. Like.
If they're beyond all binary oppositions, then how can we say make any true or false statements about them?
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Because a statement being true or false is like the law of excluded middle. So if they're not under these binary oppositions, which is true and false, then we can't make any true or false statements about them. So
The fuck, nigga. I don't think that's relevant, but actually, I'm gonna let official tag in. I don't really care.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. So what's the argument, Whyfun?
we can't make any true or false statements about them if they're beyond every binary opposition, because true and false is a binary opposition. So we can't say that it's true that they're beyond all binary opposition. So this claim is just unprovable.
I think I would be okay. If an author was trying to portray, do you agree that omniscient beings can be within fiction or omnipotent beings?
In terms of fiction, they can do anything logically possible. Omniscience and they know
Or
everything
like
within their
illogical,
fiction.
or
We're
like
sure.
illogical things. Hold on, wait. Let me ask my questions. Hold on. All right. So, do illogical things can exist in fiction, or no?
Like things that
Not
go
just like
beyond our core
normal
laws of thought.
logic, just like
I don't
completely
think.
logical and logical by all scopes, everything completely logical.
No, I don't believe that.
Okay, omnipotent beings can exist in fiction.
Omnipotent, as in they can do anything logically possible. Yes.
No, omnipotent anything in totality. Omnipotent would
I
be
literally,
not
I
in
literally
extent
just
at all.
answered that question. That would include
Okay,
illogical
okay,
things.
so
So
no,
obviously, I deny
okay,
that
so do you
existing
agree
in
that
they do.
omniscient? Do you agree that omniscient beings can exist within fiction?
Omniscient, as in they know everything within the verse. Sure.
Omniscient, or just like like they know everything, not just within the verse, just everything in totality.
No.
Why?
Humans' epistemic is limited. Like, hello.
Yeah, well, like, okay, wait, their epistemic is limited. I don't think in that it has to. I don't think that has to be the case within like fiction. Like,
If our knowledge is limited and the characters share our knowledge, then their knowledge will be limited too. Like, it's pretty simple,
I
efficient.
don't think that's just in like an imputed reality, right? Okay, so like that goes against the
No,
purpose of
it's
fictional storytelling. Well, hold on, like, I can explain why. The purpose of fiction was created to express creative ideas, right, and not be limited in what they're able to like express and portray within a narrative, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody, like stuff like Hitler and shit like that, right? That's really what fiction was made for, like just like art was made for. This is art, right? It's literally what it is. Right? You saying
it
that,
could be
oh
made
no,
for
it
that
can't because it
purpose, but
doesn't scientifically make sense, right? Fiction wasn't made to scientifically make sense. It was just this fun thing for people to just interpret and read to have fun, right? We accept these impossibilities as just like a pastime or something like that. We just accept this to be the case, like, oh, just because it's a fiction. We don't say like, oh, this character can actually come to reality and do this. We just accept that it's true within their own narrative, right? Just to enjoy the story.
cool. You're saying we accept this because that's the purpose of fiction. I don't think that being the purpose is relevant at all. I can have the
Wait,
intention to go outside and do a true contradiction, but we know
wait. So
that
you
cannot be the
disagree with
case.
us
So I
being
don't
able to
wait.
read fiction?
I'm not done. I'm saying, cool. They can have the intention to do a contradiction or go against the true laws of thought. Then I just don't see why that would be the case. Why they can't do this thing
All right, I'm a
again.
steel man your I'm a steel man your argument. Okay, by that reasoning, right? What's the name? By that reasoning, we would not be able to have fiction. Would you like me to explain why?
We can. They just follow three laws of thought, like
No, 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 no,
correlation.
no. We can't make any entailments because we don't have any reasonable evidence to ascertain that these characters can actually do these things, right? If I'm
Yeah,
saying
we
like, oh,
do.
I seen a dog. Wait, can I get my argument? If I say I seen a dog fly yesterday, would we take that to be true? These are all just claims by the author. Why would we take the claims of an author to be true within a series, like a character being able to fly, a character having magic? There's
Yeah,
no
they
proof or
govern you
evidence
because
other
they
than, wait, hold
govern
on,
what
hold on.
happens
There's no,
within
hold
there.
on. That's like saying that you can appeal to yourself, right, and just be credible, with no sort of like concrete reasoning that's like external from yourself. By that logic, right, and I would be able to say anything, right, and it would just be the case.
By what logic you can say anything and it would be the
By
case?
your logic,
No,
I'd
it
be able
wouldn't
to
be.
say anything and it would just be of truth. It would literally
No,
be
it
an
wouldn't.
objective truth.
Why? Why
Okay,
doesn't the
okay,
logic do that?
okay, because. Wait, I just explained it to you. You didn't track?
I listened to the first part, the last half was babble, so explain why.
Okay, the last part was babble, so that was just you wasn't tracking or you just being ignorant. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so since the fact that an author, right, doesn't have any evidence or any reasonable evidence to actually make his claims justified, an author cannot make any entailments about his series, right? The reason why we say we accept these things to be able to read fiction is via like suspension of disbelief, is like which I posited earlier.
Suspension of disbelief literally just goes back to the prior point. I'm saying that the reason why we accept these things because the author is the one who creates everything within this hypothetical story. But the only thing I'm
Why
questioning
would we do
is
that?
wait, shut up, shut up, shut up. The
Wait,
author
we
is
accept. Wait,
literally
wait,
the
wait.
one
What's
that
your argument
governs
for why we
everything.
accept it?
Shut up,
Wait, by
stop.
that,
I'm
hold
gonna
on,
mute
hold on.
him.
Wait, what's your
Mute him.
argument?
He
What's your
doesn't know
argument?
how
I
to
didn't hear
speak
what you
terms.
said.
This
Wait,
nigga's
wait,
just
wait,
Run
wait,
out
wait.
of
What's your
time,
Wait,
argument?
wait, wait,
kids.
wait, wait, wait,
I
wait,
didn't hear what
Whyfun,
he said.
Whyfun. He
Wait,
was
wait,
saying
wait.
he didn't write.
Restate
Yeah,
the
I
first
know.
part.
I'm
Restate
gonna
the
repeat
first
it.
part.
I'm gonna repeat it.
Go
Just
ahead.
tell him be quiet. So my whole point is authors govern what happens in this hypothetical story. That's the reason why we take what they say, like to be true, what they posit in the story. Well, not everything they posit in the story, but that's
What?
the reason why we take
Wait,
like what they're saying to
why
be
do we
true
make
to
distinctions?
correspond to
Why
the
do we make
fiction or
distinctions?
reality.
Wait, well, okay. So why do we make distinctions as okay? So what's the methodology? How we know like what we cannot take to be true, even though it's written by the author through
Me-
contradictions, right?
What knowing why statements are false or true?
No, why? Okay, what's the methodology that we use to discern what's going to be true and what's false within the narrative?
Whether it corresponds to the reality or not that we're talking about.
Whether it corresponds to reality or not. So again, this goes back to my point. We cannot say these fictional characters, what's the name, correspond to reality because by definition, these things are not real.
The fictional reality. Oh my goodness! Like you're just being retarded. I
The
said
fictional,
that
okay, yeah,
verbatim.
no, I'm saying the claims in our reality. The author cannot make any claims that we would accept because by definition, about a fictional character or anything, because by definition, they're not real. That's why suspension of disbelief was made.
Dude, are you listening,
How can you
official?
say? How can okay?
Dude,
How can your
official.
claim be
Wait, dude,
justified?
dude,
Okay,
dude, dude,
wait.
dude, wait. Stop
Yeah.
talking. Stop talking and listen. Are you listening?
Go ahead.
It's this simple. When I say reality in reference to fictional verses, I'm talking about what the author imagined. So clearly, what the author says about this reality would be true because it's literally just their imagination,
Wait.
right?
Okay. So that okay. I'm a steel
But
man
the
that
thing
by
I'm
that argumentation.
questioning,
Hold on. Wait.
wait,
I'm a
I'm
steel
not
man that.
done.
No,
I'm not
I'm saying.
done. I'm
Hold on.
not
Hold on. That's
done. But
contradictory. That's
wait,
contradictory.
I'm not. Be quiet,
No,
official.
okay.
You don't understand my point. So obviously, you're gonna scream it's contradictory.
Because
So
you're
my whole
dumb.
point is that I'm questioning whether that includes things that goes against the three laws of logic.
Where they go? Why that includes it? What's the
Yes.
argumentation for it? Wait. What's the argumentation for it? Being limited by it. That's like shifting your
Who
burden.
said is limited by it?
Wait. So you're asking why it's not limited?
Yes.
Wouldn't you? Why are you? Wait, that's shifting your burden. You're supposed to argue as to why it would be limited, because the whole purpose of
You
it is that
can't
we
tell me what I'm
accept it.
supposed to
Hold
argue,
on.
official. Like, no, you're not
Okay, I
supposed to
can
argue
explain
that.
why. Okay,
Fuck.
yeah. Okay. So suspension of disbelief just says that we accept these things to be true, knowing that these things, because it acknowledges all the problems, right? It acknowledges that these things go against the three laws of thought, but we just accept it, even though it does it, for us to have fiction.
Okay.
So if we don't use suspension of disbelief, we cannot have any fiction. You cannot have a character, right? You realize that,
Dude,
right?
dude,
You
dude.
cannot have a fictional. You cannot say that your character exists. You can't say your character has powers because that's written by the author. That's the narrative. That's what I'm saying. You can't say
Official,
any.
I'm
You can't make
convinced you
anything.
have like an extra chromosome.
All
We've
right, so
been
that's
over
just an
this point
argument for
already,
ignorance. That's
and
usually
I
an argument for
already
ignorance.
gave you a way where we can have fiction without your retarded system,
How?
right?
What was it? As long as it's within the three
We
laws of thought. Why? Okay,
no,
so
no, no, no. It was just that. Yeah, that's one way, but another way could just be
and
that
you okay, so
whatever unless we have sufficient reason to say why this is, I mean, to question this thing or believe why this reason is
I can
false,
okay.
then we would accept it to be true.
Okay, so the reasoning as to why, what's the name? It's fine with it going against the three laws of again things with it going against the three laws of thought. It's
Wait,
just
wait. Before I
hold
continue,
on.
official, your mic has like a really bad echo.
Yeah, I know I can't do anything with that.
Okay, bro.
But yeah. So the argument for it, like you're saying, like the three laws. Wait, restate your argument so I don't paraphrase your fucking argument wrong.
It's just that whatever we take what
Oh
the
yeah,
author
fictional
says
story.
to be
Yeah,
true
three laws of thought. Right?
until
Because
there's
do you remember
sufficient
you?
basis. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So something was made. Something was made for something, right? Then you're positing something that goes against its purpose. Like I don't see as to why would take be true because we already went over how a fiction, right, was made to express creative and imaginary events, right, that aren't limited to like what have to correspond to reality and the three laws of thought. They're all just made to portray like imaginary creative events. It's just expression. The whole point of this is to express it, right? Every narrative, everything in the narrative is just an author expressing something, right? It's just art. The whole purpose of this thing is to express something, right? So there's no problem with
Move
an
on.
author, right? If the whole hold on, well, let me finish, right? I'll finish, right? If the sole purpose of this thing was just for like the author or like a person to express themselves, right? And then people, we as a society, right, came to a consensus saying, oh, since we don't want to limit these people expression, right, which is what art is made for, right, for you to be not limited in your creativity as long as it's like, like it doesn't go against like, it's like as long as it's not like Nazi Hitler stuff and stuff like that. That's really what like society agreed to as consensus, right? The whole purpose of like art and stuff like that is about expression. You saying that they should be after limiting. Why should we limit people's expression solely off of the fact that it doesn't we just don't we don't like the fact that it wouldn't make sense in reality, right?
So
It's not supposed to hold on. It's not supposed to it's not the whole purpose of this thing was not supposed to make sense in reality
you're
in the
just
first
repeating
place in like
yourself. You're
one to
repeating
one
yourself.
ratio.
You're repeating yourself.
Hold on, wait.
You're
I'm not
repeating
repeating myself.
yourself.
I'm
You
not
are.
repeating myself. I'm not repeating myself. Stop cutting me off. Can you mute him? Can you mute him? All right,
Yeah.
cool.
Also, by the way, official. After you're done, Vert gonna tag in.
Why?
The niggas been begging in chat. Just tag him in after this.
Mm, I'll see. I'll see if I do. Right. But since this thing was made for it, right? And then they made a principle, right? Just the fact to counter this, you saying that fiction can exist going under the three laws of thought. Now I don't disagree. That fiction can exist. My argument is that why would we take a fiction that is limited when the whole purpose of fiction is to not be limited?
So
Just
just
because,
to be very, 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 very clear.
just because you
Wait.
feel like it doesn't correspond to reality.
Okay. Cool. So just to be very, very, very clear, your whole response, your whole justification is a question, and you saying, "Well, this is what it's intended to do." I don't care what it's intended to do. All I care about is whether it can do this thing or not. Yeah, I can intend, like I said again earlier, I can intend to do a true contradiction, but we know I can't do it. So why that just because it's like you have no justification for your claim? Like this is actually getting ridiculous. Go to conclusions, unless you're going to
Yeah,
present
we
an
don't have
actual
to go to
argument. At least your
no, no,
conclusion.
no. Okay, so my whole argument wasn't a question. I don't know why he just like strawman me right there. I gave my argument like, okay, so if his whole thing is like, he thinks that it's better for fiction to exist, to have to why am I muted? Am I muted?
No,
Hello? Okay.
here you.
So if his whole argument is the fact that he thinks fiction, what's the name, is applicable under the three laws of thought and stuff like that, and just has to correspond to it with the 1-to-1 ratio, solely off the fact that he just believes that these things cannot happen. So why should we accept them to be true? And I give the argument that fiction, the whole point of suspension of disbelief is that we accept that these things cannot happen, right? It's just so that we can enjoy the narrative and it just express creative ideas, right? Just like, and then I'm bringing up the hypothetical versus battle scenario, right? This is just going to be following under that same notion, right? We know that it cannot happen that these characters, that Naruto or whatever, or like my character, exist inside of their universe. So no, right? Because these characters don't exist. So how can your character use this ability on mine? Right? This is just going to be another hypothetical narrative that we're creating where we accept that these characters exist in the same place or some shit like that, or just in a hypothetical scenario, right? So by your argumentation, right, we're not going to be able to have versus battles, right? We're not going to be able to have this debate, and then what's name it goes against. And then it goes against like what fiction story. It doesn't matter the what's name. It goes against the three laws of thought. It wasn't intended to be limited by those things. The whole purpose of fiction is to be unlimited, right? So yes, it's fine that the purpose of it was to be the case, right? You're just not using fiction. If we're not using words by their definition or things, then we have no way to we have no rules to adhere to, right?
Go to
We have no
conclusion.
rules to adhere to. Why would we? Hold on.
Cool, dude. We understand
No,
what
we
you're
don't have to
saying.
go to conclusions. We don't have to go to conclusions, right? I'm not done. So think of fiction like this. Okay, so like an author trying to portray like a character named Bob who doesn't actually exist and stuff like that. He exists on Mars, like his astronaut family. The author has no evidence, right? Why, in one sense, should we accept that even though the author has no evidence
The
that
circular.
for this
Go to
to actually be the
conclusions,
case?
dude. We
No,
heard
no, no,
this.
no, no, no. The problem is all of these things are rooted in the argument from ignorance, right? Which is going to be fallacious. Either way you go about it, fictional storytelling and depictions of events that don't happen is going to be fallacious. So we cannot make any arguments about them and them being credible in any aspect.
Yep. We go to conclusions.
So if you disagree with this, then you can't have a fictional character. So yeah, we could go to conclusions.
Cool. Go
Wait,
ahead.
hold on.
But
I gotta
actually, no,
give
hold
my
on, wait, no,
argument.
Vert has to argue. Vert has to argue too.
Go ahead, Vert. Actually give a coherent argument.
Okay, yeah. So like, okay. So what you said was like under like binary opposition of like the true and false thing, right? So like, if the statement that you made, which says we can't say these statements are true because they're binary opposition or whatever, fall under binary opposition, that means he can't be above him. Then that itself is like a statement. Therefore, we can't say that like that statement is subject to binary opposition and give it be
Yeah, we
evaluated as
can
true or
because that's
false.
the law of
So yeah,
excluded.
you said what?
We can say that about my statement because my statement follows under binary oppositions. So I don't get what you're trying to say.
No, no. I'm saying that it logically contradicts binary oppositions or like the law of
How?
identity too. Okay, because you're saying that. Oh, actually, no, not the law of identity. My bad. Fucking law of excluded middle. Because you're saying that. Oh yeah, these statements are fucking. What's it called? True or false? You can't evaluate them. But then, like your statement, if that we take that into account, then your statement can't be evaluated either. So
Why can't my statement be evaluated?
because of the statement that you made, it that we can't evaluate these true or false things or whatever.
We can't evaluate whether this thing is true or false because it doesn't follow binary oppositions.
What do you
So
mean by
true or
that?
false doesn't apply to it.
What? What do you mean?
True or false doesn't apply to something because true and false is a binary opposition.
What? Yo, hello, can you hear me? Yeah, repeat your.
Yeah, a
What you said?
binary opposition. I said because the only reason why we can't determine those things because it doesn't
Okay, so
follow
I'm a
a
tag in.
binary opposition. A
I'm a
binary
tag in. Since
opposition
fiction,
is just like, say, for example, P and not P.
all right. So since fiction itself, if it doesn't follow under true or false, then by itself it can't. We can't have any entailments of anything within a
Fiction
fictional
does.
narrative.
His character
No, it
doesn't,
doesn't.
according to him.
Wait,
Which
wait, wait,
I'm
wait. And
telling
also,
you,
the problem with your argumentation for the versus battle, why we can't even have this debate and stuff like that, why your argument is flawed, is because if Naruto by definition is a ninja who exists within the narrative of Naruto, right? And your character is a character who exists within that set narrative, right? That's going against the definition of these characters. These characters don't exist in these set places by definition, as to like what they are, right? So you saying like, oh, we're literally going against what we know to be true, and like where these characters exist and stuff like that, and saying that there's some hypothetical reality, right? That's like where they actually exist and that all anime characters that can access to or something like that. Right, that exists between these universes, right, with no argument for actually how this can happen, right? But we just accept this to be the case. That's suspension of disbelief. So we could go to conclusion. We could just go to conclusion. I don't think you defeated anything
Can
you
y'all
said.
make this entertaining?
We
I'm
could
just
go
being
to
honest.
conclusions. We could go to
This
conclusions.
man-
We could go to conclusions.
No, we
Please,
can't. We can't.
please,
So
bro.
look, we can pause it. Like
Please
literally,
make it
like you want to
entertaining.
use it outside
Wait,
of
be
the
Bro, get
quiet, be
that
card.
nigga
quiet.
with
It can be
stereo out my
contradictory. Like
ear,
the law of
bro. God
exclusion.
I'm
damn.
We could
talking
go
to
to
Bro, be
conclusion.
quiet.
Whoa, 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 whoa,
Who the
whoa,
fuck told me to be quiet,
Bro,
faggot?
can
You
we
little bitch
chill,
ass.
chill.
Y'all
Everyone
niggas
talking at
loud. Then
once.
what the fuck is
Yeah.
wrong with your gay ass up,
Bro,
faggot?
shut your gay
Okay,
ass
so
up.
look, we're going to
Shut your
conclusions, right?
Good.
dusty ass up, you dick riding
Snail,
ass
shut the
nigga.
fuck up, nigga. Oh my god. So we're going to conclusions, right?
You're a
yeah.
Discord debater. You debate on Discord.exe.
We're going to conclusions here.
Okay.
Wait, Wi-Fi,
Yeah,
did
hold
you
on.
want to
I
address
just made
that?
a. Yeah, I just made a point, but yeah, we can go to conclusion.
Wait, Wi-Fi, did you want to address that?
Just what?
Like what he just said.
What did Vert do?
I, well, it was official.
He said what?
It was something official said. I don't even remember.
He said something official said or something exclusive. What did you say,
It's,
Vert?
Yeah,
it's
because
still
official
recording.
tagged in extrovert.
Oh yeah, official tag did it. He just repeated himself. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so he just doesn't feel like so we could just go to conclusions if he feels I repeated myself. We have the recording for what I said, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Bro.
So do you need conclusions, Mondre? Did you
We
hear?
could go to conclusions.
Mondre, do you need conclusions?
Yeah, go ahead and give some, because there's a lot of, like,
Pretty much that
Okay, so I
conclusion
don't
just
feel like
sums up.
I don't feel like he attacked my point. His argumentation is flawed. By his argumentation, what's his name for like what he described as like what makes an author credible, right? They'd have to have epistemic axis and stuff like that, or credibility and stuff like that, and what they're able to like entail via them like having this knowledge, right? If I put in the question if if this person even has this knowledge and stuff like that. Wait, no, that's not what I said. You know what? Fuck it, nigga. I won. To be honest with you, I just won, bro. I just won.
Wait, can I get my conclusion?
Bro.
I just
Like
won,
this
bro. Like
nigga's
that nigga was
retarded.
green.
Anyways, Mondre, I'm gonna give you like
Wait, can I get my
extra.
conclusion, nigga?
Yeah, let Vert go.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So basically, we all went on that like binary opposition tangent. Y'all can look in the recording for that shit. I'm not about to explain that. But then I also said you could posit like a scenario like I'm in like an outside of a car being contradictory like to the law of excluded middle, disproving like the law of excluded middle being true. I don't know if he heard. I don't know if they heard that because there was some niggas in there. But like, I did like tell them that I made like a point and then really like say anything to it. So
Yeah, but Manja,
Yup.
niggas. In conclusion, these niggas are like actually autistic. He said his character doesn't apply to binary oppositions, and I'm saying if that's the case, then we can't apply true or false values, or it would create a contradiction. Going against Vert's like retarded ass point that it would disprove the law of excluded middle. It doesn't disprove the law of excluded middle. That's the whole point of why I say we can't apply true or false statements to them because they're a binary opposition. You fucking idiot. And the
Bro,
official whole point
they low
that
key
these
real, bro.
characters aren't real, and so they can't. They don't know anything about them. But like the whole point of a fictional story is just that it's the author's imagination. The author imagines this thing, and it would be the case in that reality. But I'm questioning whether that applies to contradiction or not. Things that goes against three laws of logic. So
Nick, you did not hear what I said. What the fuck?
Yeah. So y'all could probably guess who I think won this point. Um, I don't feel like arguing over the judgment. Um, I'm not gonna lie. Vert and Official is a devious ass team. Is there another point y'all need to go over? Or is the debate like effectively over?
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. They're not like arguing anymore, bro. If we're continuing this debate, we're scaling one more time. Like, and it's over.
yeah,
Bro,
we're
I
just
think,
if they're continuing the debate, we have to scale. But like I'm pretty sure no one will see us continue. Like we
bro,
already
there's
Bro,
no
Okay.
way,
bro,
bro.
you
There's
don't
no
even have
way.
to scale, nigga. Like it's 3-0.
Realistic, we don't. But I mean, it's up to Whyfun. I don't care.
Whyfun? Say no.
Nah, I'm good.
Okay.
All right, so
Yeah,
this
okay.
debate
Well, I
is
don't
over.
think Monty's confident, so I'm just gonna be the wreck. But I still haven't even finished scaling my character. So
We
like,
don't care.
We
We
don't
don't
care. But he
care.
so I
didn't
We
don't
don't
attack
really
my
care.
care.
argument. What the fuck? I was even
Yeah, and
telling
second,
binary
second, and a
opposition.
second, Monty. I don't care if you don't feel like debating judgment, but like, we could just go over why you think
Yo,
he won.
yeah, bro. Yeah, bro. I got a
Wait,
question.
hold up. Why fun? You didn't
Official.
attack the argument. That's not what I said. Like
Excuse me.
that's not what I said.
Excuse me. I, I got a question, Mr. Official. Are you real?
You could talk to me after the debate. You could talk to me after the debate,
No,
lame ass nigga. Anyway,
like, are you real? Like, are you like a drone? Like, are you an AI? Like, I'm.
He left.
Wait, hold up. Why fun? You didn't attack my argument. What the fuck? That's literally
What
not what I said.
argument did I attack?
Wait, so Manny,
Nigga,
is
hold
this
up.
wait, Manny Whyfun? Is it safe to like save the record, whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not.